Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Steve, and today I'm joined by Jacob John White from a Many Tale. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful.
If you'd be so kind to kind of just introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about you.
Mhm. Hi, so I'm Jake. I'm an author, I'm a novelist. I'm working on creating some novels, trying to get published in the fantasy industry. And I write a serial called A Many Tale. It's basically like free cosmic fantasy every week. It's short fiction, 2,000, 5,000 words. Pretty fun. I met Dave at Gen Con.
We did, and you kind of stood out because you walk around with a giant mouse on your back.
Yeah. Yeah. The serial follows a mouseling, so like a hobbit-sized mouse character, and blips through all different like space and time. And I thought it'd be kind of a fun idea to build him out of paper mache and throw him in a backpack.
So, did you get a lot of people stopping you at Gen Con asking you about the mouse?
Yes. So it was I took a bunch of prints. Like I gave you a print, I remember, which are like little hand pressed pieces of art that I was kind of handing out. And it was probably, I averaged out the number of prints that I had, and I had an interaction like every 30 seconds with somebody. It was insane.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah. It was cool. It was really nice to meet a lot of people, especially in that space, the RPG community.
Yeah, I was kilt shopping when I ran into you.
Yeah. I saw you over there and I was like, is that his voice? I was like, there's no way that's
Yeah,
actually him. And that hurt. I was like, I have to go say hi. I had to go say hi.
that we get that a lot, like where someone will just hear us talking. And also, I imagine like a lot of people don't really like our videos aren't particularly visual,
Mhm.
so that they'll like hear us. They'll have us on the back and in the background or whatever, and then we'll be out in the wilds and they hear us talking. And I'm like, wait a minute, I
Yeah.
know that voice.
Very distinctive voice and like your beard because you had a mask on. So I
Yeah,
wasn't sure. And then I kind of like, I walked around a little bit and I was like, oh no, that's definitely
yeah.
him.
Well,
Yeah.
occasionally, even like pre-pandemic stuff, we occasionally would like we'll be like talking to somebody or hanging out, and then you'll get someone that's kind of like hanging around the edges, and you're
Yeah.
like they're trying to decide whether they should approach you or not, or it's like is that the person or not? I mean, I've done it myself, or that or they don't want to be rude and they're trying not to interrupt or whatever. So a lot of times when we'll see that, we'll be like, oh, we'll kind of engage them or whatever. But this year at Gen Con it was a little tougher because of, like you said, the masks and stuff. So you can't
Yeah,
really gauge people's expressions as easily.
definitely. It was like, I was doing exactly that. I was just kind of hiding in the shadows of the kilt shop and
Yeah.
like creeping around. And I have this freaking meter tall mouse reaching out of my book bag. I'm like, oh, I hope like no one sees me sneaking. And then a bunch of people were staring at me, and I was like, I just have to say hi because even if it wasn't you, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what's the worst they're gonna be like? Sorry, man, I'm not Dave.
Yeah, so my patented maneuver is like, especially if someone's not like particularly close, I'll just like yell their name, especially when it's in a
Oh,
crowded space like that. And a
oh,
lot of times they'll like look, and if they look, then I'm like, all right, that's them.
I definitely have to try that.
Yeah. So that's the technique that I've used. But also you're not really a good lurker because you're over 6 foot and also having a giant mouse hanging off your back. Kind
Yeah,
of
definitely.
makes it obvious.
I, I couldn't sneak around if I tried. I definitely look ridiculous because like with that book bag, he reaches out like 2 feet and he's way
Yeah.
above my. So I have to back up like a U-Haul, and trying to maneuver is no,
Yeah.
no.
Make sure you don't take anyone out. Well, like also backpacks are kind of like an occupational hazard at Gen Con and conventions in general. I think it's a little bit worse at Gen Con because they sell those like giant board game backpacks, and it's like they're walking around with these like little trunk, basically mini trunks on their back.
I didn't even know. I had no idea that those really existed in that capacity until I'm walking around and there was this little old woman, and
Yeah,
she had the duffel bags the size of a small sofa in each
yeah,
hand. And I was like, "Do you want help?" Like, no, no, thank you. And just I was like, my God, like you're taking up the entire aisle.
yeah, yeah. And also, like you're talking about, it's usually pretty close quarters. I mean, not as much this year as it is in the past, but still,
Yeah.
it's definitely a thing. So, what do you consider cosmic fantasy?
So I was trying to think of the genre, when I wrote
Yeah.
this serial, for people that are unaware of what it is. It's essentially every single week, Opaline, or our mouseling, blips through different worlds. So he's cursed to kind of travel in and out of different genres. So one week can be a Western, one week can be feudal wars, one week can be a space opera. And it goes all over the place, horror. So that's definitely where it comes from.
Does Opaline have a favorite genre or place they've visited?
Definitely your typical kind of medieval setting. He comes from like a high fantasy world, except, mouse guard style, where he was a
Hmm.
mouse. But imagine like a mouse kingdom in Lord of the Rings, for example. So he loves, like, amidst the other human races, So he loves like orchards and beautiful autumnal forest
And
for
what has
sure.
been the worst place for Opaline to visit?
Oh, we haven't quite gotten there yet, but it's definitely hellscape or place full of cats that eat mice, something awful like that.
And what was the inspiration for Opaline?
Um, so the whole idea comes from an exercise that I was doing about a year ago, right when COVID sort of started, and I realized that, oh man, we're not playing D&D as much, and I noticed that my writing was getting kind of, like, my novel drafting was getting kind of choppy. It was
Hmm.
taking a lot more for me to really get inspired, which is normally not normal. That doesn't really happen. And I said, oh, I put it together pretty quick that the improvisational instinct that you get from running Dungeons and Dragons was what I was lacking. So I threw on some like questing piece videos, some nerdarchy videos, and just started watching a bunch of D&D stuff online to try and get my fix. And then I realized, oh, I can grab a legal pad, some dice, and like solo RPG. And then I found a bunch of stuff on Mouse Ritter. If you know, Mouse Ritter is like the OSR supplement.
I have not
Um,
seen that now.
oh, it's so cute. It's like a little zine by
Hmm.
Isaac. They just had a Kickstarter for the next box set. Um, I saw that and went, oh my gosh, I should do this because I've always wanted to play like a mouse guard game. And if I'm going to do this little writing exercise for like 15 minutes a day, I should just write it as a mouseling. So I grabbed that. I read some Mouse Guard, some Redwall, just got inspired, some Watership Down, and then just plunged straight in and started basically playing through Opaline's life with prose.
Nice. So you kind of started from doing solo RPGs.
Yep. And I still, even some of the episodes now are like written a little bit like that. And it's very rules light, but
Uh,
it stems from using dice and trying to get those instincts, those juices flowing to get a little bit of a chaos to the writing. Challenge myself.
Now you also mentioned you're a tabletop gamer as well. Um, do you have a regular game that you're involved in, and are you usually
Yes,
like a player or a DM?
pretty much the forever DM. My brothers run a couple campaigns that are very good, and we enjoyed them thoroughly. Um, I've ran so many games over the last few years, like hundreds of sessions, and currently we are playing a game called the Wayward Campaign, which is beautiful, and we're pretty story heavy. Like, we don't take the rules too seriously. We homebrew a lot. It's all just based on character arcs, and we've been playing with the same relative group since like middle school. So it's pretty cool to be like, I'm around 23 right now, and most of our group is around 22, 23. And to be able to still play like once a month, a couple times a month occasionally is pretty cool. So not super often, but we're definitely still playing.
I mean, adulting gets in the way and makes it a lot tougher, uh,
Certainly.
especially if like only one person is the GM all the time.
Yeah.
You have to recruit your brother to run more games.
If he wasn't like 4 hours away at university, I'd say so.
Have you done any gaming online?
So when COVID first hit, we took a break from this Wayward campaign that we're playing. And
Yeah.
what's cool is that I was writing a novel when I first started Wayward. I was writing a novel in that world because a lot of my worlds that we play are just sort of ideas that I want to test. And I was like, oh, it'd be really cool if we took a break, because Wayward was always our in-person game. It was always that way. We never played online before. Let's play in a different like city on the other side of the world and do a little bit of a. So we did that for like 6 sessions, and then we started playing in person again with Wayward, but we never finished that campaign. So we played online for a little bit. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Did you guys use VTTs or just like Zoom or Discord? I guess you guys probably use Discord, kids.
We actually used. I'm actually not a big Discord guy.
Oh no.
No, we I think we threw on Roll20 for the map, but then we just used Zoom and talked through. It was so much role playing. We did really little, very little like.
That's what I get for stereotyping you. When we were playing online, my son is like, why are you using Zoom? You should use Discord. Like, and that's what all of him and his friends do, and are kind of like close to your age.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not very good at Discord. Everyone always invites me to their Discord, and then I immediately shut off all the notifications.
Yeah, it kind of. I don't know why. It's pretty. It's not that it's difficult to work. It just I don't like the interface.
Yeah.
I'd rather.
I guess
just.
So for me, it's just that like every time we add like a new like platform, it's just like so many, right? Like,
Yes.
like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, Discord. Like, it seems never ending. Like, when we first started Tumblr, like I don't even know if that's a thing anymore.
Oh my God, Tumblr! The depths of like the ends.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think did Tumblr crash after they took off the porn off of there? They're like, there's like,
yeah, it did.
There's no reason to use Tumblr anymore. It's done.
Yeah, that's crazy. I started to experience that when I realized that I was going to do a many-tail. I kind of put together a big book tour binder that I've been planning out for the last several years for when I would eventually get published.
Yeah.
When I decided that this little serial exercise was going to become something, and I was like, oh, I'm going to put this out in the world. And that was like mid-July. So I took that book tour binder and like everything that I had written out, all the marketing strategies. I looked through all the social media and I was like, oh, this won't be that bad having all these different socials to maintain and a website and stuff. It's awful. It's awful. It's not terrible, but it's definitely a lot of staring at my phone screen.
Yeah. It is hard. Well, it's like, when you're doing this stuff, it's like any one thing could be its own job, right? And
Yes.
then if you're trying to do it all by yourself, it's a lot. And like you could literally just do Facebook all day or Twitter all day. So when people get started and they ask me for advice, I'm just like, pick the one you like and focus on that.
Just that's absolutely key. Otherwise, it gets frustrating.
So, how deep are you into the serial stories?
So at the moment, we are 11 episodes deep. We published 3 on day 1, which was August 12th. And since then, we published a special episode for Gen Con, which was Duel at Sunout, which is like, instead of Duel at Sundown, it's a sun explodes, which was fun. And pretty much every few weeks we'll have sort of a mini arc. So up to this 11 episodes, we've had a few standalones in there, but most of them are sort of like the introductory adventures to show you what Opaline is and how he works and the way the magic systems work. Yeah. Right now we're in the middle of our Halloween stuff, which is cool.
That is cool. So this is pretty much brand new.
Yeah, it's brand new. I published it and then that very day went to the Pittsburgh Comic-Con to start promoting it. And then 4 weeks later, finished the mascot and then went to Gen Con, and I was terrified. I wasn't terrified when I got there, but
yeah. Do you have the Opaline handy?
Oh no, I do not. I should have brought him.
You should have brought him.
I should have brought him. He could have been sitting right here.
Yeah. Are there images of Opaline on your Instagram?
Yes, there's a bunch of images on our Instagram at a_many_tail, and then www.amanytail.com, our website link. There's images all over the place.
We got those linked in the description so people can go and check those out as
Yeah.
usual, and you should, which is super cool. So, how's the response been to a Many Tail and Opaline's adventures?
It has been overwhelmingly positive. Everybody that I've met, I was surprised at the number of people that I met at Gen Con, say on Friday, that when I showed up on Saturday again, had already read it,
Oh wow!
which was insane. I really was not expecting that. Dozens of people, we got so many reads, and then people were like, oh my gosh, this is really amazing. There were certain people from a specific booth that were just so enthusiastic and so positive Saturday morning, and that set the tone for the day. So I think I met you Saturday.
Maybe, probably. It's 4 days of a blur. I don't know how long you were there
Yeah,
for.
quite a blur for me too. um, but it really set up everything in a very, very idealized through line. There were so many people. Saturday morning was crazy, and then Sunday was crazy at Gen Con. And I've been getting a lot of messages, cool, which is also fantastic for people, like emailing me saying, hey, I actually got to read it. And
Nice.
yeah, it's really exciting. It's pretty cool. Also, somebody that was upstairs just brought the mouse down, so
Oh,
I'm gonna show it.
nice.
All I saw was this. That's why I paused for a second. I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, yeah.
There he is.
Oh, nice. Does
Yeah.
Opaline essentially live in the backpack? Is there no lower body?
Yeah, I have a lower body, but it's kind of just foam.
Oh, okay.
Because I was going to kind of make it magnetic and have it like be taken apart, and then
Oh,
I
yeah.
said way too much work. I'll build another one someday. It's much better.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
still cool. It's definitely an attention getter. So if you're ever at the point where you have a booth, or even when you're walking around, like, I mean, you're going to be the mouse guy now. So
Yeah, that was nuts. Like as you said, or as you asked, about the reception, people saying that the stories were amazing was really interesting, and
mhm.
and the number of readers that have actually come back to read more episodes or DM me on Instagram or email me about it is really, really, it's very validating, and it feels really amazing, especially after building the mouse and going to Gen Con. But also the reception to the whole project in general, in terms of the marketing and the art, is really, it's quite extraordinary. Because when I left Sunday, I was kind of driving home, and like you said, that people were like, your strategy is to shout out people's names to see
Yeah,
if they are. I was walking around, and there were at least 2 or 3 dozen people that would just mouse guy, mouse guy,
yeah.
every single time. It was mind-boggling, because I believed in the idea, and I thought that it would work. I did not think that it would work as well as it did.
Well, I mean, there's not a lot of giant mice running around at most places, so yeah, it's going to elicit one of two responses. People are going to scream and yell and run away, or they're going to be like, "Oh, I want to see what that is, what that's about."
I got an equal number of who is this weirdo
Yeah,
as I did. Oh, that's pretty cool.
yeah,
It's a good ratio, 50-50.
yeah. And also, I mean, it's pretty common for people to grab like random cosplayers and get their pictures taken with them and stuff.
Yeah.
So
I got a ton of pictures taken that I didn't know were being taken. Like if I was speaking with you, people would
yeah,
probably
yeah,
I would be at a booth talking to um like Indie Press Revolution, for example, talking with some of their employees and looking at their zines. And they'd say, hey, like 10 people just walked by and took a picture. And I'm like, damn it,
yeah,
next time I need to put a sign on him or something.
yeah,
I
yeah.
was going to put a QR code. And then I thought, I don't want to get kicked out.
Oh, that would be really cool. I wonder how that would go over.
Yeah, I feel like maybe I should contact them first, or just do it, and then I could just take it off if they want me to.
Yeah, so we give out stickers a lot of times, and I have been told in the past that people they don't generally like it when you do that
Oh,
because people tend to be can be irresponsible at times. uh, but I feel like the actual fans that take stickers aren't really going to do that. Hopefully,
No,
but
no.
yeah, I didn't think about that going in. But I imagine, like, I guess if you're at a random booth and people are walking by and just taking free stuff, it's different than when we actually like talk to people.
Yeah.
So how
I
long
was
did it take you to build Opaline?
around 3 days, 4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have luckily people like channels like Black Magic Craft or other big time D&D channels like that. I got a lot of inspiration from them, and I sculpted a lot of pretty big stuff for our D&D game. I actually should have brought some minis over here. I sculpted a miniature that is bigger than Opaline by an entire foot and a half. That is a massive like storm dragon.
Uh-huh.
She's kaiju. She's sitting over there. She's enormous. When you put her on the table, her horns touch the ceiling.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
So I have a lot of experience with paper mache, and my art teacher, rest in peace, Joe Ludwig, basically taught me everything that he knew about it, and that's why it didn't take nearly as long as it would have if I had no idea how to
Right.
do it. He
Did you
turned out
you
well
build
though.
on balloons?
No, I actually got his technique that he taught was basically to just cut slips of paper and then
Mhm.
assemble a skeleton with tape and paper, and then slowly kind of caress the wet paper over the skeleton to make a foundation.
Oh, okay.
Um,
So you like build like a paper armature.
exactly. It's nice
Uh,
and light. Doesn't Once the glue dries, there's almost no weight to it.
yeah.
In a backpack, he weighed almost nothing.
That's very helpful if you're gonna be trekking around for days on end.
It still killed my shoulders. I mean, I went back to my hotel room
Yeah.
Saturday. Friday was pretty bad. I got shin splints because I was walking so fast.
Yeah, yeah.
Saturday was so bad that when I got back to my hotel room, I had to stretch my shoulders out, and I was like
Yeah,
doing a bunch of exercises. It
yeah.
was awful. I was just like this.
Yeah, working the con's not easy, that's for sure.
No, oh my gosh. And I did a lot walking around and talking with people. And then I looked at some people in booths and I thought, my gosh, the number of people they're speaking to compared to me, and I'm talking to people, I can't even imagine what that's like. You're sitting in that little 20-foot box for,
Yeah.
oh my God, for
And
eight
they're
hours a
trapped,
day.
right? So like they can't get away to like go sit down somewhere, go chill. Like at least if you're just kind of doing your thing, you're like, all right, I've been walking for a while. I'm gonna take 20 minutes and chill. And they're just standing on that concrete the whole time.
I could take a break. If I wanted to have a conversation with someone, I could stop and talk. But when
Yeah,
you're sitting there and you have to like make your money back, oh my God, it's so different.
it is. Also, like the difference between like you go into a booth and they've like paid extra to have really good padding compared to the
Yeah.
rest of the floor. You're like, oh, I want to just stand here.
That was nice. There were a lot of, especially the bigger companies, like weird games.
Yeah.
I Alpha miniatures and talked to a bunch of people there, because if I stopped for long enough, if I was looking at a booth,
Hmm.
people me. So my strategy was, okay, like Indie Press Revolution, they have a really great padded floor. I'll just
Yeah.
go stand and hopefully get to be able to hand out some prints to people. It was
You're
wonderful.
taking notes for the next con, like who had the best flooring if I have to go stand someplace.
Got a whole list, got my strategy prepped out.
Yeah. Did you have a strategy going in, or did you kind of just like wing it? Have
Uh,
mouseable travel.
so I had a bit of strategy. It was sort of Thursday. I did not bring the mouse in. So I got there, I went to the hotel room, I like loaded everything up, and then I had to attach the business card to the prints.
Hmm.
So I spent Thursday doing that, and I went to the showroom floor for around 2.5 hours and just walked. And I couldn't see it all because it's so enormous.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Mind blowing when you're used to like Pittsburgh Comic Con, which is not even remotely close to that. I walked the floor and just looked around and said, okay, like, what's a good place to stand? How am I going to do this? When a cosplayer walks back and forth 2 or 3 times, eventually people say hi to them. So maybe if I walk down the main hall for like 30 yards and turn around and walk back, and someone sees me 2 or 3 times, eventually they'll say hi. just sort of like repetitively putting the mouse in their mind,
Yeah, yeah.
hoping, please say hello, please say hello, please say hello.
Subliminal
Um,
mouse. No one ever expects that.
yeah. And then I adjust strategy as the subliminal mouse. I adjust my strategy as the weekend went on, just because I realized, okay, yeah, if I stand at a booth for long enough and look inviting, somebody will come up and say hello. If I talk to people, eventually they'll ask about it. And that's the goal, because if somebody asks about it, I don't have to be, I'm not pushing anything on them, you know?
Yeah, that's smart having a good conversation piece that kind of travels with you and also making it light.
Yes, I'm very happy that it came out light, because as I was building it, I got pretty freaked out that it would be super heavy. Um, but it is not. I used expanding foam to kind of cover the inside skeleton so it'd be really sturdy, because I knew that if it whacked people, it couldn't just be paper skeleton.
Oh yeah.
And I carved it out. And as you hold it, you're like, oh, this is a little heavy. It's like 5-6 pounds, like a few textbooks, but in a backpack, it's nothing.
So, have you subjected your players to playing in the world of Opaline yet?
Ah, awesome question. So, weirdly enough, the Wayward campaign, there was actually a region of the world called like the Orchards of Alaska,
Hmm.
and those orchards are where the Mouse Kingdoms live. So they live like our current campaign that we've been playing for around 2 years is the world which Opaline comes from.
Oh,
Which
nice.
hopefully, like my first novel will be published in that world. So there'll be a connection between all that stuff.
So Brian Smith says, so Many Tale is a serial fantasy fiction. That sums it up pretty much. On the
Yeah.
website you can check it out. With Jake's ambition of turning it into a published book someplace. So if you successfully are able to build up an audience, how long will you try to get published before you just go, all right, the heck with it, I'm just going to do it myself?
I'm not sure. I could, when it comes to my novels, I definitely want them traditionally published.
Yeah.
That's totally in my mind. I'm set with that. Getting a deal with like Tor Books or Orbit or Bain or Ace or Del Rey. But when it comes to a many tale, I'm absolutely open to. It'd be really cool to work with like an indie press or something like that and get a really nice hardcover, like hire an OSR artist.
Yeah.
Those people, powerful stuff, because as Brian asked, is it serial fantasy? Yeah, it's all short fiction. So if you get a book like a collection, each arc that we publish will be around 100, 200,000 words. So it'll be about novel length. And it would make a really nice hardcover, self-published or indie published book. It would depend on the time frame.
Would you ever consider turning it into an RPG or a campaign setting?
Yes.
Have you put some thought towards that yet?
Yeah, a little bit. It's tough just because of the randomness of it all. Being inspired by those early 20th century serials and having almost every episode, if not every storyline, takes place on a different planet in different environments. It'd kind of be like a mix of a world building supplement
Hmm.
and a rules for doing kind of what I do in terms of solo RPG writing. So I think it'd be like a mix of a writing book, writing workshop, and a fantasy game.
So, how long do you plan on doing the serial for? Will you keep doing this one? Will you branch out and do other things? Is like a many tale specifically for this character's adventures, or will it end at some point and you'll take up like different characters?
So the multiverse in which I write, all my D&D games, to kind of go back to the question that you said before, Opaline comes from the current campaign setting that we're playing in. And then all of my campaign settings are homebrew. I'm a big homebrew DM. They're all based in novels that I write, the stories that I tell, and all that interesting homemade lore. A many tale comes from that and is connected to all of that in one way or another. So Opaline kind of blips through all of the little bits and pieces of lore that are going to connect to all the novels that I end up publishing. I want a many tale to be free, absolutely free, unless I'm doing like a hardcover serial or a hardcover book,
Yeah.
free online. And I want it to hopefully exist for a very, very long time. I have honestly decades of story planned. It's not super outlined, but I know, okay, it'll take me a really long time to write up to here. The same way that I plan an epic fantasy series. I know that this happens to Opaline here. I know that we have his entire backstory to get to. The goal is just to have it in the background running so that if anybody ever wants to get into my stuff, we'll always have thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of words of a many tale that you can jump in and enjoy for free.
Are the stories standalone, or are they more serial in nature in the sense that, like, if you were to pick one in the middle, you'll have no idea what's going on?
I'd say it's a mix. So if you understand the premise, that Opaline is Mouseling and he blips through different worlds, you can probably jump in. At this point, we only have 11 episodes, so
Yeah.
a lot of them, a lot of the story is being explained now. But once you jump into, we have a few standalones right now. We have 4 or 5 standalone episodes. And once you start jumping in like even a few months, there's absolutely going to be huge stretches of time where you can jump in any week and just throw something on, and it'll be a blast. It'll be a nice, easy 15-minute read while you're, on the toilet or sitting at breakfast or just the goal's like snappy.
Do you have like a set word count that you go for each one?
Just until it ends. So
Okay.
some of them, like, we have 2 storylines right now that have lasted multiple episodes, and I'm going to do that every few months, every few months, just because it's fun to do that as well, to build up a little bit of hype. And like Halloween episode 11, which is called Master of Keys, will lead through a 5-episode arc that'll end October 31st on Halloween night. And the set word count for those, like, that's our longest one so far, around 5,500. Most of them, the standalones will be around 2,000 to 3,000, and then the multi episodes typically are 3 to 5, 3 to 4, just because it's more like a long short story that lasts 15 to 20,000 words in that respect.
So they tend to be like a long blog post.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, nice. So, how often are they coming out? Is it a weekly, monthly, bi-weekly?
Every Thursday. I publish around like Wednesday at midnight. Sometimes you can catch them early, depending on how I feel. But yeah, they're always Thursday.
Okay. And so how far ahead are you? Or do you write them as they come out?
Yeah, so the process is that because we have a guest artist, which is also something we do, we have artists come in and do new covers every week, so that each story, because he's flipping to new worlds and new genres, we want to have artists come in and do really fun renditions of all the atmosphere and the characters, and kind of put their spin on what I'm doing. And then I illustrate a lot myself, just because I can, and it's easy. It's also a lot of fun. And because of that, because we have artists come in, I have to get those stories done way ahead of time. And so what I'll do, like for episodes 4 through 7, introduce the major conflict of a many tale. They're very important. And essentially what I did was I went through and I illustrated them all myself, because I could get those episodes done that week.
Right.
While I was writing those, I could go ahead and finish all of October. So I'm set through early November at the moment.
So, I mean, this is a serious project for you. This isn't just like kind of some side thing, one-off thing that you're doing. You're investing in it. I mean, to have artists come on every week, that's not an inexpensive endeavor.
I'm asking a lot of favors.
Okay.
Just because I don't have the cash, so I'm asking for favors, doing work for work.
Okay.
Like, you're an artist and you want to come in, I'm always willing to work for work. I can do art for you. I can do writing for you. I can do editorial work. And then having myself.
I mean, you're still investing though. So
yeah, no, it's a lot of time, but it's also great because for the last 4 years, we spoke briefly about this before we went live. I didn't go to university. I studied art and writing full time, and trained to be an athlete, be a discus thrower. For the last 5 years, essentially, it's been me, like, in my room studying and writing and writing and writing.
Yeah.
So I actually have official deadlines where I have to get something done every week. It's actually kind of breathtaking. It feels really good to have something out there. And even though it's a major project, but at the same time, it isn't nearly as hard as writing a novel. So it's sort of like a through line, I guess. It's always gonna be there. It's always a lot of work, and I'm investing a lot into it, but it's a lot more upfront work than it is throughout the coursework.
Yeah.
Now
Well,
socials and stuff, it's not that bad.
I wouldn't say it's less than writing a novel. You're just doing it piecemeal, and stringing it
Right.
together. So it's just like, the difference is a novel has a set amount, right? There's a beginning and an end, where you're doing a serial, like each short story or each short story arc
Yeah,
is kind of the deal.
because it also, as I did mention, yeah, I do have it planned for a long time and
Yeah.
have a lot of notebooks full of, this has to be mentioned here. This has to be mentioned here. These characters have to come in here, and I have stuff planned. I have like episode by episode charted out through at least next Christmas, which is around, I don't know, a little over 60 episodes, close to 70 or something. Which is, yeah, you're totally right. It is definitely just as much work. It's just spread out over a longer time.
Yeah, yeah,
Spread.
you're just not releasing it all at once, is all.
Yes, it's it's not as much. Oh my gosh, look at this stack of this manuscript thing.
But psychologically, it's probably good too, right? Like, because it feels like you're getting things done, and you're not just working to someday get something done, because you're constantly having things to release, and it
Exactly.
gives you some sense of accomplishment.
Yeah,
So, when you think about this as a possible in the RPG space, would you use an existing system? Would you make your own system?
definitely make my own.
Okay.
The idea is rooted in some principles that are majorly introduced in episode probably 15, so end of October. So I won't talk about that yet.
Yeah. So I was going to say, absolutely, if you've only done 11, we're not there yet.
Yeah. So the sort of, a lot of, Opaline is not the only person who is cursed to blip in and out of worlds. He blips with a collection of almost like 36 other people or beings, and they're all cursed because they touched a goddess named Peridot, who is a tiny little god dragon. And in that blipping, a lot of these people, Opaline's fairly young. He's only a little over 100, compared to some of these beings that have been here for thousands, if not tens or hundreds of thousands of years, and have completely lost their minds. They're basically gods at this point, that are still slaves to this timeline. And I want to play with that when it comes to the RPG. Playing characters would be kind of interesting to me.
Okay, so they didn't all like touch this god at the same time, but they at some point they've all.
Yes, because she blips as well, and they follow her. They're cursed. Yeah.
So does she have control, or do we not know?
She does not. I will say that.
Okay. Cool. So, so do they all appear at the same places, or do they just sporadically, randomly show up at this other place?
So it is relative proximity to each other on any given planet or realm. So if you are holding hands, you're probably going to blip together holding hands. If you're eating dinner, you'll likely blip in the same room or in the same town, depending on like the size of the world and where you are. But if you run away from somebody and then blip away and you're 6 miles away, you'll probably blip 6 miles away from them.
Yeah, it makes me feel like it gives me some vibes from some couple different like TV shows that are probably before your time, like Sliders and Quantum Leap.
Yeah, I also wanted to evoke that. I feel like there's not enough wacky gonzo sci-fi stuff out there right now, especially sci fantasy. There's not a lot in the OSR scene. There's a pretty good amount of crazy stuff going on, but I really wanted to evoke that, a little bit of Doctor Who mixed with a little bit of D&D fantasy stuff.
Is that essentially where your inspiration came from, or were there some other places as well? Like
Def- Go ahead.
the blipping aspect of it. Like where did that come from? Because you had mentioned like the character came from playing these solo RPGs, but
Yeah.
that doesn't seem like any like I don't think those games involved like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, great question. So the blipping came out of a strange little dilemma, or yeah, a little wall that I had to climb over, where Opaline, like I said, started life as like a mouse guard or a red wall or a Watership Down style rodent character. And then he grew, and eventually in the storyline, he touches the goddess and becomes cursed. And then he also mistakenly, I won't reveal how because eventually that'll come into the story down the line. But he turns into like a mouseling, like a hobbit-sized mouse. He, through means of sorcery, has always wanted to be human-sized and becomes human-sized. And then he blips. And what I was thinking was, I always wanted to have a story where I had a character walk across worlds, like a planar escape campaign, or a spelljammer. Except I wanted it to be a lot more abrupt, less travel. I wanted to be able to go through all my fantasy multiverse, and I wanted it to be really, really dreadful. And at the same time, hopeful and loving, but I didn't want to get rid of my mouse character. So that's when he touches this goddess, he starts blipping, and then I was like, the whole goal of this exercise, this solo RPG stuff, is so that I can get exercise in and work my improv instincts. It'd be really fun that if I watched like a Clint Eastwood movie, I could write a Western that week to get it out of my system world building wise, because world builders, I'm sure that you've had that like, I want to play this because I watched this movie. And I said, oh, well, I can combine that idea with this idea and then combine all this stuff so that, I'm still playing my mouse character. Now he's a much larger cosmic hero, and I can play any genre that I want at any given time. That's kind of the goal.
So it's just a big excuse to play in any sandbox that exists.
Yep, totally.
For sure. What is your preferred genre?
My preferred genre is it is cosmic fantasy, but kind of not as wacky as this. This is just as you said, it's an excuse to do stuff and kind of show off and have some fun. But it's probably, to get a good sense of what I like, it's a really high fantasy that's really serious and lighthearted. So it has a very somber, solemn tone. It's very thematic, and at the same time is really evocative of the love that life gives and breathes. Something like Stormlight Archives, maybe a little bit darker than Stormlight Archive.
So is that also how you like your D&D games would go? Do you guys prefer high fantasy, and if so, like more towards Forgotten Realms or Eberron or something else?
Very. You ever play Dark Souls?
I have not.
Yeah. It's definitely, if anybody's played Dark Souls in the chat or watching this, it's very Soulsborne. It's really, really heavy. So it's just unforgiving. Every mistake that you make is just going to cost, if not your life, the lives of everyone that you love. But when you succeed, the bad guy doesn't win. When you're good enough, when you rise above them, you really rise above them. It's kind of about beating demons, beating your own demons. And my friend group is really into that, which is we're really lucky that we all kind of love the same thing. That helps.
Probably why you guys are friends. So, what are there reoccurring characters that show up in the serial often?
Yes. So the characters that blip with Opaline are called the agglomerates. And they're called the agglomerates because they collect things. Essentially, as they blip from world to world, this is what gets introduced. It's already introduced, but it'll get more explained later. As they blip from world to world, they don't have any grounding, which is what Opaline's dealing with. There's no home. There's no sense of family or friendship. So they start to collect things and they start to go mad. So Porbio, his name is Porbio. He is Opaline's, I'd say, best friend. And Porbio collects animals. And he draws animals extremely realistically in a large sketch pad except it. I guess D&D class wide, he'd be like a summoner druid
Uh-huh.
and bring these animals to life and has no regard for sentient life whatsoever. So like he'll go into a city and release the entire menagerie and then just let them slaughter everybody. So the recurring characters are typically not always the good guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Frenemies.
They're more or less the people that have kind of blipped.
Yes. And lost themselves to madness. And Opaline is dealing with, oh, this guy again. You know,
So
why are you doing?
does the series start with how Opaline, became this cosmic adventurer, or has that already been ongoing?
So we jump in, and this was part of the dilemma with me writing this because I started writing it when he was a mouse, right? And it's no secret that I did. I'm talking about it here. I've talked about it on the website, and if anybody ever asks me, I'm pretty open about that. Except it was really difficult to figure out where to start because I didn't want to start at the beginning. I wanted to get right into the good stuff, right into the adventure. If we started with him as a mouse, it would become pretty jarring when he starts blipping all over genres, right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And we jump in probably towards the beginning of Opaline's overall life, but in the middle of him blipping through worlds. He has spent 55 years on one planet, and he doesn't talk about it, but he has a family there. He had a life there. He had hundreds of friends and loved his life. And then in the blink of an eye, blipped with no warning. And all of that half century spent on this planet was gone. So we pick up with episode 1 with him dealing with, oh my gosh, this is my existence forever. I'll never know when I leave. I'll never know how much time that I have. And he doesn't know how to deal with that.
I kind of like that. I like the idea that throughout the course of these different stories, you can like reference things that maybe you haven't written yet, right? They haven't happened, in previous stories for the reader to be exposed to, and just offhandedly, like in Opaling's thoughts or in conversation, mentioning a world they've been through, or them mentioning their life as an actual mouse instead of a mouseling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's really great to have, I played through it, not all of it, but I know a lot about what happens, and I have it in my head. So writing, and it's all first person, so it's Opaline speaking when you read the serials,
Yeah.
which I that as well. And I realized, if I'm going to have it be this long, I want it to just be in my voice, my natural, easy writing voice. And it's very visceral writing from his perspective and trying to get into that head, because the game world, when I was writing the solo RPGs, it was all from his perspective.
Have you like explored any things like, now that Opaline's a mouseling and not a mouse, like encountering like just regular mouse traps and what they think of them now, or does that trigger them, or regular house cats like before that, like that would be like a dragon to them now, and now now it's not only, it's not a threat, it's a small a small animal.
I feel I've definitely had some offhanded, some little lines here and there.
Yeah.
Episode 3 deals with a lot of that. Mice Look Up. That's my personal favorite. Like, if you want to get into the serial, episodes 1 through 3 give a good indication of what's going on. And episode 3, Mice Look Up, tackles I guess the gravity of going from this tiny little thing to like a cosmic hero. And not just a cosmic hero, but you're the size of a man now. The whole universe looks different.
I love
So
that
tactical,
title. It's very
my
evocative, and like, yes, if you're a small critter, you would always be looking up for threats.
yeah,
Well, and
thank
does
you.
that change? Does that change now that you're what, like 20, 50 times bigger than you used to be? Are you still looking up? But, and which might cause you to miss things now. Uh
Yes.
because you're looking in the wrong direction. So Parks has a question. I heard you mention solo RPGs when doing your writing. Do you
Mhm.
set the characters up like a game of characters and sort of DM yourself, for a lack of better term?
Very interesting. So luckily, because I'm a DM, like I have just a lot of experience in that way. And when I decided to go through with this as a writing exercise, my role was all of the outside characters have to roll for everything. Um, Opaline has to roll for most of his actions. Story always comes first. So if something seems like it just wouldn't work, then I skip over it. But everything is set up more along the lines of just role playing action. So, okay, someone's trying to get Opaline to do something, right? You're trying to get him to do something against his nature. I roll and make a call. Oh, this makes sense. This doesn't make sense. It's definitely set up like a game world, but it's a lot more suggestive. It's much more for suggestions. And then some of it's like a lot of the standalone stuff, because it's just for fun. It's much more gamey. I'll just sit down with my dice and I'm like, let's just have some fun today. Let's throw some weird monsters. Let's throw some weird creatures here. And whatever the dice tell me to do is what happens. And we're going to go with it. Depends on the story.
There's several games that are GM-less or even solo games that are out there. I've not played them yet, but yeah, the best way I've heard them described is more often than not, they're kind of like choose your own path adventure books with game mechanics that go along with it. It is weird to call. I think it is a little weird to call them role playing games, but it's like at the same time you are telling a story. There is a narrative. There's a role you're trying to get into, but you're not actually doing role playing per se. Like you're not sitting there with yourself and being the NPC.
More writing
and the characters.
Definitely, just even if you're solo RPGing, it's definitely just writing. It's just kind of a different form. It's like playing with toys. Like if you're playing with Legos or playing even like miniatures or modeling, you're telling a story just with a different medium or different art form. Because I don't use any solo oracles. There's a lot of those out there that you can buy. I'm forgetting a lot of their names, but like I just grabbed Mouse Ritter, the system, because it's old Renaissance. For anybody that's familiar with it or hasn't looked at it, it's super rules light. It's so simple. It's just D20 here, some quick, easy modifiers, and it explains what you're doing. And then I use old school essentials now for Opaline as he's grown into a real character. And I don't use a lot of the rules. I just kind of use stuff as suggestive, because I realize that if I use it too rules heavy and really stick to the book, it bogs down the writing, because all I'm doing is writing prose. It's not even lit RPG. I'm sitting down and, okay, how do I tell this? I made Opaline fumbled this roll, for instance, in combat, right? He trips, he loses his spear. All I want to do is transfer that to my writing. It's not about recording the action in a transcript. So trying to make it as smooth as possible is the goal. Trial and error.
Yeah, so like right now on Kickstarter, there's actually a game. I forget the name of the game off the top of my head. That is a solo. Secrets of the Vibrant Isle by Nerdburger Games. He was on a couple weeks ago, and that's a solo RPG for people that are interested in that style of play. But I think it's a great idea to use that as kind of just like a way to stimulate your creativity for writing.
Well. I could not believe how well that it worked. It's been really fun, and it snuck up on me how awesome the story became, because I didn't, it was just kind of like this fun little exercise that I did. And I always knew that we had this joke character in my campaigns, which is where a little bit of where this comes from. This joke character, since we were 14, I'm 23 now, so it's been almost 10 years, where in every single campaign that I've ever had, we have a hooded, shadowed character show up in a city and go, "I'm Rat Man," and he's a rat, and he like acts like a superhero, but he's really incompetent and just fumbles and is terrible. And I thought, it'd be really fun to kind of grab that joke and make him into a real character. Kind of worked. He's really not. It's not the same joke. He's a completely different character now, but he's still around. I had something interesting to say. I had a good point there, and I lost my train of thought.
It happens. Maybe it'll come back. So, at what point did you know that this was going to be more than just a writing exercise for you?
I think probably around the midway point of writing about Opaline, right when he turned into like a mouseling and blipped for the first time, and I got the whole big idea. I was like, oh, this will be really cool because I can include this character in some of my novels here and there.
Yeah.
He can kind of cameos, and it'll always be something for me. And then people will ask, oh, who is this guy? Oh, maybe one day, 20 years from now, fandoms on Reddit will be like, who's this mouse character that keeps showing up in his novels? And then I realized, oh, it's really dumb to be sitting on this because, as we spoke about a little bit before we went live, I'm unpublished and I'm querying some novels right now and working on some more drafts. I'm sitting on something that could actually really help my career if I go out it in a really creative way and really hit the ground marketing it. And then this summer I went, oh, I'm done. I'm just going for it. And put my head down and wrote the first few stories and said, okay, this is actually really good. I'm really proud of this.
What's the next event you'll be at?
Hopefully PAX Unplugged. There might be a couple smaller conventions around Pittsburgh. There's like Creature Fest in Uniontown, PA that I might be attending.
Okay.
But because I know there are so many people there, and I'd love to see people from Gen Con again, because I went to Origins in Columbus last weekend.
Yeah.
And people were like, hey, I saw you at Gen Con.
Mouse guy.
Yeah. Mouse guy. I was like, that's amazing. And then some people even said, hey, we read the serial last week.
Yeah.
And that was so amazing. That blew my mind. So I'd love to be able to go to another one and meet some more people and make some more connections.
PAX Unplugged is a good convention. Yeah, we'll be at that one. Me and Ted will be there. I don't know in what configuration. My wife will be over there as well at some point. But that one for us is local, so we feel obligated to go to that one. That's
not too far from you.
No, it's not. Like, we film like 15 minutes from the bridge. So is that one closer or further than Gen Con for you?
Much closer, 2 hours closer.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is it's nice.
Well, I mean, PA is such a huge state, and you live like all the way on the other side of it.
Yeah, I live maybe 5 minutes from Ohio and 5 minutes from West Virginia.
Yeah.
So Philly is other side, but it's not too bad. 4.5 hours isn't too bad.
No, that's definitely drivable. I mean, me and my wife drove out to Gen Con, and I've driven out with, I drove out with my son one year, and I drove out with Ted the one year, and it's like a 10-hour drive. So
yeah, that sucks.
it does suck for sure. It is slightly more economical the more people you have going with you, and it's easier to bring stuff as well. But
definitely, I started to realize that, like, Dragon Con next year, they'll fly out to Atlanta to go to Dragon Con and try to hit these much larger, like, fantasy conventions, not just gaming conventions.
Yeah,
it's lit. So try to get into the literary community. And I started to realize I'm going to have to build a separate Opaline model, and then I'm going to have to magnetize it or clip it, and then be able to break it down, put it into my suitcase, and fly it, because I can't bring this thing on a plane.
Yeah. You're gonna have to buy a separate seat. Yeah.
Like, well, look at that weird guy with his strange looking mouse mascot.
Yeah. Well, you'll know you've really made it when you can buy like 2 first-class seats, one for you and one for the mouse.
I'm so excited for that day. I believe it'll happen.
Do you know what Flat Stanley is?
Yeah.
So you should totally Flat Stanley Opaline.
That's a pretty good idea.
Like, you maybe do like give Opaline their own social media, and like when you go out, like have them take pictures. Because I'm just picturing like Opaline in a first class seat with their plane ticket in their mouse paw.
That's fantastic. So I've been going to local shops, and the prints that I gave you, I'll give like 30 prints out to comic book shops, bookstores, gaming. I've been going there, and I've been going to when we were in Indy, I went to a bunch of like the downtown shops because there's a ton of gaming stuff there. And I was thinking it'd be a pretty good idea to maybe package these up and send them to bookstores in like in New York, in LA, in all the major lit hubs, because in Chicago, like London, just to see like, hey, would you be willing to just give these out for free? So maybe I'll combine that with an interesting like flat Stanley fied opaline.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I could sculpt like little mouse miniatures. I like to sculpt miniatures too. So maybe I'll sculpt like a mini opaline statue or something.
One day you'll be able to sell Opaline plushies around the world.
that, that'll be the day. That'll be hilarious.
So we're up on the hour mark. Final thoughts before we head on out?
Yeah, just thank you so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate this. And it was great meeting you. Thanks to everybody that's tuning in right now. Please check out the serial. It's all free. It's all fun. If you love fantasy and you love TTRPGs or the OSR community, the art is great. The stories are good. It's a blast.
And as always, the links are down in the description, so go check it out. Thanks for coming on. Until next time, stay nerdy.
Yeah, thank you.